Are you fixing to do your rear brakes on an 89 to 95 Toyota pickup? Let's look and see how we do that. If you're fixing to do your brakes on an 89 to 95 Toyota pickup truck on the rear, it's not really a difficult brake job, but that Toyota brake design is a little bit more difficult than, let's say, a GM rear brake system on an older vehicle or a Chevrolet pickup truck. So, like the adjuster, the brake adjuster, the spring wraps around it. You have to take the brake adjuster apart to get the spring on it. It's little things like that. The biggest problem you're going to have doing rear brakes on an 89 to 95 Toyota pickup is the fact it's Toyota. I know everybody loves Toyotas, thinks they're awesome. They're awesome till you have to work on them. When you have to work on them, you find out that for every nut and bolt and part that's on the Toyota, there's 5 or 6 different flavors of each one. In this case, we ordered parts and they were all wrong except for the drums. That's the only thing that came in that was right. It turned out to be there was 3 different shoes that could go on this, and there was 4 different wheel cylinders that could go on this, and there was 3 different hardware kits that could go on this. So my suggestion to you is, before you start into your truck, take your VIN number, call a Toyota dealer, one of your local dealers, and get them to give you the Toyota part number that would match to your VIN number. That way when you go to call the parts store or go to order online, you actually have a part number to reference it to, because it's aggravating, especially if you are driving the truck every day and you're going to need it. You don't have time to tear it all down and find out you're going to put it back together because the parts are wrong, or let it sit out there and wait for a week or 2. So I would suggest getting the actual number from Toyota based off your VIN number, unless a parts house can supply that same accurate information off a VIN number, but at least match it to your VIN in order to get the right parts. Because in this particular job, when I ordered the wheel cylinder, there was no difference. That wheel cylinder looked identical to the one that came off of it. The difference is the plungers, the little pistons that stick out on each end. Well, on these Toyotas, they kind of recess down in there, but they were actually thicker. So when I went to put the brakes on, everything went together, but the shoes stuck out further than what I had to run the adjuster up as though the shoes were worn out. It kept the shoes held out. So I knew right away it was the wrong one. But like I said, visually, couldn't tell the difference. It bolted up, everything looked the same. So anyways, just be careful getting your parts. And there's really nothing special about it. Just watch the video and you'll see how I'll go about doing this. And as always, for every part and every tool that I use in my videos, please look down in the description and you'll see links for these parts and tools and such. So let's dive into the video. When you go to do the rear brakes on almost any car, sometimes the drum will get stuck. Luckily on the Toyota and most imports, they have a little hole in the drum that you can put a bolt in, and this thread is an 8x125, and you just put your bolt in thread, and you'll turn it with a ratchet and it'll push against the hub back there and pull it off. Now this drum's already loose and I've already had it off, but another tip is when it gets hard to pull off, or pulls so far won't come all the way off, take you some sandpaper and just sand some of the rust off. And if it's real bad, use some penetrating wool, but you just want to knock some of that crud off so that the drum will come off. Okay, on this braking system, you can use this tool here to take it apart. However, I don't really use it because this is supposed to dig into either the shoe, or if you've got riveted lining, you can put it in one of the rivets. It's great for taking it apart if you know you're going to change the shoe out, but if you're putting new shoes on, you don't really want to poke a hole in your new lining. But this tool is designed to do this and take the spring loose. But I could have just easily used channel or vice grips and pulled it as well. Okay, you can use a pair of pliers and grip to hold this, or you can get one of these tools. For all these special tools, I put the links down in the description to be able to get them. But you want to take these are like little nails that stick through the back side. You got to find it, put put your finger on it to hold it. I'm going to push in and twist. It comes off. Since we're doing brakes, I'm going in and removing the pins. Now, for some reason on this braking system, this brake adjuster, it sticks like everything to that. And I think the last time on the other side I've already done, I had to end up leaving it on there. The reason being is this piece of the adjuster has a little pin on it, and it goes into the actual brake bar right here when you put the emergency brake on. That's what actuates the automatic adjustment. What I do is just let the shoe hang, take it off the spring. Now we're going to be connected to the cable back there. You can just take your adjuster off and leave the head of it there for now. Just don't let that get real dirty. See it. What you have is a pin that's actuating two levers. This one is for the self-adjuster, and then the bigger one in the back is the emergency brake. So we're going to have to remove the clip for the self-adjuster lever. There's the head of the adjuster. And that pin right there, or that little barb, will go to the back and stick into the adjuster bar. And you can't get this spring off of this adjuster until you unscrew the adjuster all the way. And just so you know, on the passenger side, it's the regular direction threads are. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. On the driver's side, it's backwards, it's reverse threads. This is a bear. You have to expand it. Best way I found to expand them is to turn them in towards the shoe. We're doing a complete brake job, so we're going to be changing out the wheel cylinder. You're going to have a line on Toyotas, it's a 10mm. You want to get yourself a 10mm line wrench. You can try using a regular wrench, but if it's really jammed, you're going to round it off and you're going to have lots of problems taking it out and putting it back on. So get you a line wrench. Before I get brake fluid all everything, I'm going to go ahead and take the bolts loose now, since that they're the line's loose. And you can see where the bolts are, so you almost don't have to go in the back. You can just kind of use your finger and feel where they're at. Okay, depending on the area that you live in, yeah, if you got a lot of people around and stuff, don't use air. Just use practically a half a can or whole can of brake cleaner to wash all these parts off. Or you can just depending on how dirty it is. Now this one isn't that dirty, but I've seen some that are just completely covered with like where the wheel cylinders are leaked. If it's got a lot of grease or brake fluid in there and it's all gummed up, you're gonna have to wash it, probably scrub it with a brush, because you want your backing plate to where the shoes rub. You want that to be clean. As you can see, the new shoe, the pin for the emergency brake and the adjuster is made completely different than the one is on it. And you're going to run into that because Toyota don't know how to make the same part for every vehicle. So you're going to have to reuse this pin if you run into the problem. You may get lucky and get the exact one, but I've actually done a few of these and I've always had to swap these out. So get you a socket, one that's going to fit over the head of that. Knock it out. Same with the pin on the new one. So ensure you got the pin going in the right direction. Stick it in there using the same socket. Sure it's flush, and you're good. Okay, now that you got your pin in, slide your emergency brake lever back on, and they give you a nice new clip if you buy a hardware kit. And I highly recommend when you do rear brakes, always buy a hardware kit, because the springs get hot and wear out. Yeah, even that's kind of stupid. You barely get a bite on it. Someone get it. And after you put your brake lever adjustment arm on, then just put your clip back on. Ensure the clip's on there good, not going to come off on you. The little weird looking line comes off the spring will go in one hole and out the other. The spring isn't really that strong, you can just use a pair of pliers and that holds it together. sure that this goes behind this plate down here, make sure it lips into it. Let's go ahead and put our pin on to hold that shoe in place. Push your little cap into the spring. It just kind of holds it there. Put your finger on the back to back it. I kind of jumped the gun and went in and put the shoe on before the wheel cylinder. It doesn't really matter because the shoe's flopping around right now. But and when you put the wheel cylinder on, a lot of people tend to put the wheel cylinder up there, tighten the bolts down to the wheel cylinder against the backing plate, and then try to start the line. Don't do that. You can go ahead and put your bolts in if you want to start them, to make sure it lines up, but leave it loose, and that way you can wiggle it and help the threads catch on the brake line. That way you don't ream them out. When tightening the bolts on the wheel cylinder, you're not trying to break loose a wheel lug nut or a head bolt. It's just a small little bolt, so they torque maybe like 15 to 20 foot-pounds, if that much, so just be gentle with them. And then when you go to tighten down the line, the brake line to the wheel cylinder, again, use your line wrench and don't round the thing off. Now we've got to put the spring back on the adjuster, the new spring on the adjuster. Makes it easier. Wow, they made it this way. I don't know what drugs they were on when they did that. And when you finally get it screwed in, screw it all the way in. That way it's easier to pull the spring and connect the other shoe. And I'll tell you another reason that you pull the spring on this side is the spring will come up here and hit that adjuster wheel, and of course from this point here to there, there's no stretch, so it's harder to pull the spring off. So you do it on the side that you've got the coils on. And I've already seen a video out there where they put the shoe up there and then tried to expand the spring over to that hole. And that's just a whole nightmare. There's no point in doing all that. Just pull it. Just pull it, catch it behind the that plate down there. And the spring is supposed to loop around behind that. Let's go ahead and put your other retainer on to help hold the shoe. And always make sure that that little pin, it's like a screwdriver slot sticking through, make sure that it's opposed, running perpendicular across the slot so it don't pop out. Now with this system, you can probably put your knee into it, but it's going to want to shift back and forth to get this spring on, so I have a trick for that. So what I do is I'll just take like a clamp you use in woodworking, pull the shoes together. Now, you can use this tool right here, like I said, to pull that spring in, but this doesn't have any rivets, and you're going to dig into the lining. I don't do it that way if I don't have to. If I have to, I'll get a piece of metal or a piece of cardboard, something to keep from digging into the shoe. Okay, now that I get this little piece in here, it's a little bit of a booger sometimes, but just use your vice grips, pull your spring in, and your brakes are reassembled. Ensure that your shoes are in behind the little alignment plate down here, that the spring is underneath this little tab. Double check, make sure that these springs here, there's a slot and the screwdriver looking flathead there, are turned perpendicular. And then just be bumping the shoes around a little bit to make sure that the drum goes on, lines up, and you're probably going to have to adjust it from here because it has a opening in the back, but it must take a special Toyota spoon. None of my spoons actually work it, but you can semi-adjust it from here. I'm going to throw the drum up here and see if the shoes are close to being tight. They're not. You're going to know when it's a little bit too hard to turn just by the drum itself, because you got to think when you got a big tire on there, it's going to be a lot easier to turn it. Turning the drum itself, plus there's no resistance putting the drum on at all. Don't get impatient and start running that thing way up, then you're going to have to back it back down. Now, if you got the nice little Toyota tool to come in behind and pull it and adjust it, would be great, but I don't have that. They're adjusted. So you saw in the video how I used the brake spring tool, and that's really a nice slick tool, and it's fine for taking things apart. But unless your shoes are riveted, the plier spring tool, like I pointed out, it's got that point on it. If you start digging into your new shoe, you can actually crack it. And I know this to be a fact because I knew somebody that did that, and it first just took a little notch out of their shoe. But what it is, it created a micro crack in it, I guess, and now over time and heat, it started always making a noise. So we pulled it apart, and sure enough, where that little dot was, the shoe was split all the way there. So if you're going to use it to put the spring back on with, be sure to use some cardboard or a piece of wood or a piece of metal, something to protect that shoe. So I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, if you did, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or any comments, leave me a comment. And if you got really an in-depth issue, be sure to, you can look down the description for it, but be sure to contact me through my website, and I'll be happy to help any way I can. So always check back, because I'm always working on something completely different and something crazy. See you in the next one.